This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We simply analyze the use of weapons and other props in movies from a historical and cinematic perspective. This content does not in any way promote violence or advocate the misuse of weapons. Viewer discretion is advised. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, The Godfather isn't just one of the greatest films ever made. It's a cultural phenomenon that defined how we see organized crime on screen. This 1972 masterpiece starring Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, and James Caan won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and it grossed over $250 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film of 1972. But beyond the incredible performances and Coppola's masterful direction, The Godfather features some of the most iconic firearms scenes in cinema history. From the restaurant assassination to the toll booth massacre, every gun in this film serves the story and the characters who wield them. These aren't just props, they're carefully chosen, period-accurate weapons that transport us back to 1940s New York. So let's dive in and break down the guns of The Godfather, because in the Corleone family, respect is earned and disputes are settled with cold steel and hot lead. The Smith & Wesson Model 10, the cop's gun that started it all. Let's talk about the actual gun Michael uses in the restaurant scene. The small but deadly Smith & Wesson J-Frame Chief Special, a 5-shot .38 special revolver that Clemenza tapes up to keep it untraceable. This little snub nose may not look as intimidating as a full-size service revolver, but in The Godfather, it's the perfect weapon for a close-quarters hit. The Chief Special, which would later become known as the Model 36, was introduced in the early 1950s. But J-frame revolvers of this exact style were already circulating in the late 1940s in various pre-model number configurations. These guns were designed to be lightweight, concealable, and brutally straightforward. The kind of revolver you could hide behind a toilet tank and still count on to fire when your life depended on it. With its short barrel and 5-round cylinder, it wasn't meant for accuracy at long distances. It was meant for moments exactly like the Sollozzo and McCluskey hit, sudden, intimate violence delivered at arm's length. In the movie, Clemenza walks Michael through the plan with chilling precision. "This is as cold as they come," he says, meaning the gun can't be traced, especially with the grip wrapped in tape. He tells Michael how to retrieve it, how to let his hand hang loose, how to come up shooting. The tension in that bathroom scene is almost unbearable. Michael's shaking hand, the echoing sound of the cistern as he pulls the gun free, the split second where he decides to cross the line he can never return from. Then 4 shots that change everything. 2 for Sollozzo, 2 for McCluskey. It's not flashy, not stylized, not romantic. It's raw and immediate. What makes this moment so unforgettable is how the gun itself contributes to the realism. The J-frame revolver is small, quiet, businesslike, exactly the opposite of the dramatic gangster guns Hollywood usually glamorizes. It symbolizes the practical, unglamorous mechanics of mob violence. No ceremony, no spectacle, just a hidden revolver, a few pounds of pressure on the trigger, and Michael Corleone stepping into his destiny. The Thompson M 1928. Another iconic firearm in The Godfather is the Thompson M 1928 submachine gun, the movie's definitive mob gun and one of the most visually striking weapons ever put on film. While the Thompson was a legitimate military firearm throughout World War II, by the 1940s it had also become permanently associated with gangland violence thanks to its distinctive profile, heavy .45 ACP firepower, and unmistakable drum magazines. In the film, it appears in both of those roles, as a battlefield weapon in the Sicily sequences, and far more memorably, as the tool of one of the movie's most brutal murders. The Thompson M 1928 and M 1928 A1 variants used in the movie are easy to spot thanks to their top-mounted charging handles and the classic Thompson silhouette, thick receiver, finned barrel, and vertical foregrip. For the ambush on Sonny Corleone, Barzini's men use the iconic drum magazine configuration, the one most people picture when they think of Prohibition-era gangsters. Those drums allow the gunman to fire long, uninterrupted bursts, which is exactly what makes Sonny's death scene feel so violent and overwhelming. In the toll booth attack, Barzini's shooters hide around the booth and wait for Sonny to stop, trapping him in the wide open with nowhere to run. The moment he steps out of the car, they unleash hell. Multiple Thompson gunners open fire at once, shredding the car, the windows, the doors, and Sonny's body in a sustained, merciless volley. The muzzle flashes, the chattering roar of the .45 ACP, and the sheer volume of rounds create a sense of overkill that defines the brutality of the hit. This isn't a quiet assassination with a revolver. This is a declaration of war. What makes the Thompson so effective symbolically is the way it contrasts with the smaller, more discreet guns used in other killings throughout the film. When the Thompsons come out, it signals escalation. This is organized, coordinated, military-grade violence, not personal revenge. And the film reinforces that dual identity by also showing M1928A, one Thompsons in the hands of U.S. soldiers in the Sicilian scenes, casually riding in jeeps as standard-issue wartime equipment. These background moments give the weapon historical authenticity, grounding it in its real-world context rather than treating it as just another Hollywood mob prop. In The Godfather, the Thompson M1928 is more than a gun. It's a statement. Its appearance marks the moment the mob stops playing by the old rules and commits to open, all-out conflict. With its drum magazines, rapid fire, and unforgettable on-screen presence, it stands as the film's defining automatic weapon and one of the most memorable guns in cinematic history. The Colt Detective Special, a classic snub-nose. The Colt Detective Special makes several appearances throughout The Godfather, and it's another perfect example of period-appropriate firearm selection. This compact 6-shot revolver was one of the most popular concealed carry weapons of the 1940s, and seeing it in the film adds to the authentic feel of the era. The Colt Detective Special was introduced in 1927 as a shortened version of Colt's police-positive revolver. It featured a 2-inch barrel and was chambered in .38 Special, making it perfect for concealed carry. The gun held 6 rounds, which gave it a capacity advantage over the 5-shot Smith & Wesson Chiefs Special that would come along later. What made the Detective Special so popular was its combination of concealability, capacity, and the Colt name. Colt had been making quality revolvers since the 1800s, and their reputation for quality was unmatched. The Detective Special became the go-to gun for plainclothes detectives, hence the name, as well as off-duty officers and anyone else who needed a reliable concealed carry revolver. The gun features a double-action trigger, and the .38 Special cartridge it fires is a proven man-stopper that's been used by law enforcement for over a century. At typical self-defense distances, we're talking 7 to 15 feet, the short 2-inch barrel doesn't significantly impact accuracy or effectiveness. In The Godfather, the Detective Special appears in the hands of various characters, representing the kind of weapon that would have been common in 1940s New York. It's small enough to hide, powerful enough to be effective, and reliable enough to stake your life on. For the soldiers and capos of the Corleone family, that's exactly what you need. The next major firearm to show up after Michael's taped-up snub-nose is the Colt Detective Special, a classic 6-shot .38 Special revolver that appears during the attempt on Vito Corleone's life. This gun is another piece of perfect period casting, exactly the sort of short-barreled wheel gun you'd expect to see in the hands of 1940s hitmen. In the film, one of the assassins uses it openly as he fires at Vito on the street, oranges scattering across the pavement, reinforcing the gritty, unromantic violence that defines that moment. The Colt Detective Special used in The Godfather is the nickel-finished 2-inch barrel version, a configuration that was incredibly popular among mobsters and detectives alike because it offered 6 rounds instead of the 5 found in most competing snub-noses. Introduced in 1927, it was essentially a compact evolution of Colt's Police Positive, built for people who needed a gun they could hide under a jacket but still trust in a fight. The short barrel, rounded grip, and smooth double-action trigger made it ideal for fast draws and close-quarters encounters, the bread and butter of urban mob hits. What made the Detective Special stand out historically was its balance between size, firepower, and accuracy. Despite its compact frame, it maintained the .38 Special's respectable stopping power, and skilled shooters could still make precise hits even with the abbreviated sight radius. By the late 1930s and 1940s, it had become a staple of both law enforcement and the criminal underworld, a gun you'd see in the hands of detectives, private investigators, and mafia button men who needed reliability above all else. In The Godfather, the detective special appears as a common sidearm among Corleone soldiers, usually tucked discreetly under coats until the moment it's needed. Its presence on screen helps cement the film's authenticity. Not flashy, not oversized, just a dependable, concealable revolver, perfectly suited to the dangerous world these characters inhabit. The Beretta 1934. Now we get to one of the subtler, but equally important weapons in The Godfather. The Beretta M 1934. It may not have the roar of a submachine gun or the cinematic heft of a snub-nosed revolver, but this compact Italian semi-automatic pistol plays a critical role in the assassination attempt on Vito Corleone. When the hitmen step out onto the street and open fire amid the chaos of tumbling oranges, one of them is clearly armed with a Beretta M 1934. A weapon that adds a layer of authenticity, not just to the scene, but to the ethnic and criminal world the film is portraying. The Beretta M 1934 was introduced in, unsurprisingly, 1934, and served as Italy's standard military sidearm throughout World War II. It fires the .380 ACP cartridge, known in Europe as 9mm Cordo, which delivers solid stopping power at close range, while remaining controllable and easy to shoot. The pistol uses a fixed barrel and simple blowback system, design choices that prioritize reliability under stress, dirt, or poor maintenance. With a 3.4-inch barrel, a 7-round magazine, and a slim, lightweight frame, it became one of the most practical concealed carry pistols of its era, favored by soldiers, policemen, and civilians alike. What made the M 1934 especially common in post-war criminal circles was sheer availability. Over 1 million of these pistols were produced, and after the war, many filtered onto the black market. For Italian immigrants in the United States, like Sollozzo's crew in The Godfather, the Beretta wasn't just a weapon, it was a familiar piece of home, affordable and easy to obtain. Its compact size made it perfect for slipping into a coat pocket, especially for hitmen who needed something quick, discreet, and reliable. In the film, the Beretta's appearance stands out because it contrasts the revolvers carried by the other shooters. While one assassin fires the classic Colt detective special, another unleashes the sleek, wartime-era Beretta, giving the scene a layered, realistic feel. The pistol may even be the weapon Clemenza refers to when mentioning a .22 load for Paulie Gatto's unseen execution, though the on-screen prop aligns more strongly with the M 1934's ubiquity. Regardless, its presence reinforces the film's dedication to portraying authentic underworld hardware. The Beretta M 1934 doesn't dominate the scene the way a Thompson would, but that's exactly the point. It represents the everyday sidearm of Sollozzo's street-level hitters, a weapon chosen for concealability, reliability, and cultural familiarity. In the violent world of The Godfather, it's the quiet little pistol that speaks volumes, the Colt 1903 model. Now we get to one of the most elegant and understated weapons in The Godfather, the Colt Model 1903 Pocket Hammerless. It doesn't have the bulk of a service revolver or the intensity of a submachine gun, but its presence in the film perfectly embodies the refined, old-world professionalism of men like Vito Corleone and his inner circle. Sleek, slim, and almost gentlemanly in its design, the M 1903 captures the idea that violence in the mafia wasn't always loud or messy. Sometimes it was quiet, discreet, and delivered with a certain formal dignity. The Colt Model 1903 was introduced at the dawn of the 20th century and quickly became one of the most respected concealed carry pistols in America. Chambered in .32 ACP, later offered in .380 ACP for the similar model 1908, it used a simple blowback system and a fixed barrel that made it accurate, reliable, and easy to maintain. But the pistol's defining feature was its enclosed hammer. Despite the hammerless nickname, it does have a hammer. It's just hidden inside the slide, which means it can be drawn from a pocket, holster, or suit coat without snagging. For mobsters, detectives, and military officers alike, that smooth, snag-free profile was invaluable. What really cemented the M 1903's reputation was its widespread adoption among U.S. Army general officers during World War II. These were pistols given to leaders, men who needed something compact yet trustworthy, a gun with a certain prestige attached to it. Criminals valued it for many of the same reasons. In the underworld of the 1930s and 40s, a Colt 1903 wasn't just a tool. It was a status symbol, a weapon that said its owner handled violence with sophistication rather than brute force. In The Godfather, the inclusion of the Colt 1903 reinforces the generational divide at the heart of the story. It's the kind of pistol you'd expect an old-school Don to carry, quiet, classy, and steeped in tradition. It contrasts sharply with the more utilitarian weapons favored by Michael's crew, as the family shifts into a colder, more modern era of power. The M1903 may not dominate any action scene, but that's precisely why it fits so well. It represents the old way of doing things, discreet, dignified, and deadly when it needs to be. What makes The Godfather so brilliant from a firearms perspective is how Coppola uses weapons to tell the story and develop characters. The guns aren't just props, they're integral to understanding who these people are and what they're willing to do. Take Michael's transformation, for example. In the beginning of the film, he tells Kay, "That's my family, Kay. It's not me." He's distancing himself from the violence and criminality of the Corleone business. But when he picks up that Smith & Wesson Model 10 in the restaurant bathroom, everything changes. The gun is the instrument of his transformation from Michael Corleone, the war hero, to Michael Corleone, the mob boss. Sonny's death by Thompson's submachine gun tells us something too. Sonny was hot-headed, impulsive, and violent. He died the way he lived, in a hail of bullets, overwhelmed by superior firepower because he couldn't control his temper. The excessive violence of his death, the way the gunman keeps shooting long after he's clearly dead, shows the brutality of the world he lived in. One of the things that makes The Godfather so immersive is the attention to period detail, and that extends to the firearms. Coppola and his team made sure that the weapons used in the film were appropriate for the late 1940s setting. You're not going to see any modern firearms or anachronistic weapons that would break the immersion. The choice of weapons like the Smith & Wesson Model 10, the Colt 1903, the Thompson submachine gun, these were the weapons that would have been available and commonly used in 1940s New York and Sicily. The production team did their homework, and it shows. This attention to detail helps transport us back to that era and makes the violence feel more real and impactful. When Michael shoots Sollozzo and McCluskey, we're not watching a stylized action scene. We're watching a realistic depiction of what it would have been like to commit murder in a crowded restaurant in 1940s New York. Another aspect of The Godfather that makes the firearms scene so effective is the sound design. The gunshots in this film don't sound like the exaggerated Hollywood bangs you hear in most movies. They sound real, sharp, and violent. When Michael fires that gun in the restaurant, the shots are loud and shocking. When the Thompson submachine guns open up on Sonny, the sound is overwhelming and terrifying. This realistic sound design adds to the impact of the violence. It makes us understand the weight of what's happening on screen. These aren't toys or props. They're deadly weapons that end lives in an instant. The sound of gunfire in The Godfather is the sound of finality, of decisions that can't be undone, of lives that can't be brought back. The Godfather has had an enormous influence on how firearms are depicted in crime films. The restaurant assassination scene has been homaged and parodied countless times. The image of Sonny's bullet-riddled body at the toll booth has become iconic. But beyond the specific scenes, The Godfather established a template for realistic firearms use in cinema. Coppola showed that you didn't need elaborate gunfights or excessive action to make firearms scenes impactful. Sometimes the most powerful moment is just a man pulling a trigger 4 times and walking away. The Godfather is a masterpiece of American cinema, and the firearms used throughout the film are an integral part of what makes it so powerful and memorable. From Michael's Smith & Wesson Model 10 to the Thompson guns that kill Sonny, every weapon in this film serves a story and helps us understand the characters and the world they inhabit. Francis Ford Coppola's attention to period detail, combined with realistic sound design and unflinching depictions of violence, created firearms scenes that are as impactful today as they were in 1972. These aren't just guns. They're tools of transformation, instruments of revenge, and symbols of the brutal world of organized crime. What makes these firearms so fascinating is how they reflect the themes of the film. The Godfather is about family, loyalty, power, and the American dream twisted into something dark and violent. The weapons reflect that. They're the tools by which the Corleone family builds and maintains their empire, and they're the instruments by which that empire extracts its terrible cost. So there you have it, the guns of the Godfather. From the Model 10 that transformed Michael Corleone, to the Tommy guns that killed Sonny, to these weapons are as much a part of the film's DNA as Marlon Brando's raspy voice and Nino Rota's haunting score. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Drop a comment below and let me know what your favorite scene from the film was, or if there's another movie you'd like to see covered. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.